and it just happens to be during COVID as well. So that was COVID just broke out. So the immediate need at that point in time was obviously to help them with the COVID response, because most of the effort was going more inland into Myanmar at that time, right? It was still 2020, and a lot of the organizations and aid groups were trying to bring in help directly into Myanmar. So usually it's like a seesaw, when Myanmar is doing well, in terms of like being open and allowing people to come in, then the border areas gets neglected, right? So that was a situation where they were having like to reduce the stipends of the staff. They were having to implement some optional payment for guests, or for the patients who could afford it, and also for people in the clinic, so those guys are not earning a lot to start with, and then the fact that they have like stipend cuts and everything is not helpful for them. So yeah, I decided at that point to do a small fundraising campaign. There was a escalation in the conflict situation within Myanmar. So in Myawaddy, a lot of people were forced to leave their homes, and some of them fled the border. So those guys, at Mae Tao Clinic told me that the caseloads were going up, because naturally a lot of these people, whether they are injured or even if they're just like regular civilians, they will also need access to healthcare. So those people who went to the clinic at that point in time, like they estimated was about 100,000 more people going to come into Mae Sot, right? So if just 1% of these people need medical treatment, that's kind of quite a big caseload already.
Yeah.
But obviously because of fighting, I'm a Singaporean, born and raised. I have a big misconception that people have about me is that I'm from Myanmar. Maybe because I spent a lot of time with Myanmar people, or in Myanmar.
Yeah.
My grandfather was born in Singapore, and I grew up in the education system. I was a typical Singaporean maybe until 16 years old, where I decided to drop out of school. So actually, I've never taken an exam in my life. So all of the big exams, I managed to skip that through direct admission exercises. So that means you apply for the school, and then they do an interview with you, and if they like you, they accept you without the exam. So I was formally trained as a filmmaker. And then I had spent about a decade after that in media and filmmaking. So doing all sorts of things from video production to live streaming to photography, and along the way decided to start a few companies as well. And because of this, I needed to hire people, right? And as I hire people, I realized that a lot of the locals that are engaged, locals meaning people from Singapore, they don't stay very long, right? And it's not because, the company was not treating them well or things like that. At least I hope not. I think it's a common problem that a lot of SMEs in Singapore face, because the small companies, they cannot pay as well as the big companies, right? They cannot offer the same benefits. They cannot offer like a nice logo on the CV. So most of the guys who end up joining these companies, they use us as a stepping stone to get to the bigger companies. They might stay for a couple of months, maybe a year or so, but then it becomes very repetitive in terms of training them. And then you get back into that process of needing to retrain and, repeat yourself. And then my saliva was getting low. So I was running out of energy and time to keep talking about the same requirements to different people. So in 2018, that's when I first started the Crossworks company in Myanmar. So that was a small office that I started, for people to work remotely for my companies based in Singapore.
Joining Crosswork has been a game changer for me, and I've joined Crosswork for over a year.
At Crosswork, you don't feel that you work alone at home. There is a good community behind you.
Crosswork's mission is to discover, develop, and deploy the brightest talents to the world, and vision is to stop brain drain.
At Myanmar for the first time with my school actually, and we were doing a photography trip. So because I studied filmmaking, so this was like part of the curriculum. And we went there. My lecturer was actually Burmese. So he took the opportunity to bring about 20 of us to, Bagan, Mandalay, Inle, and then Yangon as well, of course. So the first time we came here was like SIM cards were really expensive. The big internets haven't come in yet. the only place we could get Wi-Fi was in the hotel, and it was really slow. So that was like, more than 12 years ago now. What we are trying to do with the Here Myanmar page, like 5 years, 6 years ago, was to make a lot of content about different parts of Myanmar that the media doesn't cover. Things like the festivals that people celebrate, the Shan New Year, the what's that festival, Manor Queen in Katrina's Global Festival, and then all the different ethnic groups, the different traditions, food, places, culture. And as part of that journey, I went to visit all of the states and regions in Myanmar, talking to people from the farmers, the CEOs, and all the people in between, and also all 5 of the borders. Right, so I've been to the Indian border, the Laos border, the Bangladesh border, Myanmar border, and Thai border, and Chinese border. Of course, when I went to the Thai border, that's when I first met the people at Mae Tao Clinic, because they are right at the border, right, just about 3 kilometers away, and a lot of the community there recommend me to go and have a look at what they are doing.
Hi everybody, my name is Jeshua, and today we are in the Thai-Myanmar border city of Mae Sot, visiting Mae Tao Clinic.
Right, there were people also injured, and those were more serious cases. So that's my second time doing the fundraising campaign for them, where I actually cycled from Singapore to Bangkok. Correct. So that was the second campaign. And then like this year was because of US aid, right? So they changed the regime, and of course they have a adjustment in terms of their contribution to foreign development. So when the announcement was made, right, there was a lot of lack of clarity in terms of which programs will be cut, or if it's suspended or cancelled. So I was like, okay, maybe let's wait and see. But after a few weeks, it became quite clear that it was not going to be reinstated for the majority of the programs. And so again, there was a situation where there was a huge hole to fill, right? Because that's like a couple of $100,000 that the Mae Tao Clinic will now be not receiving in grants. And they were needing to prioritize, some programs over other programs, which in my opinion is not a great idea, because those guys who are needing healthcare, if you just do the acute needs, like the ones who are dying or who are in a very severe situation, those guys who are less acute, eventually they will get worse, right? So it's like a problem getting bigger, and people need to have the problem solved when it happens, not just only the caring about the urgent ones. So I thought, it will make sense for me to start to try and raise another fund for them to fill up this gap and provide immediate relief. But for the people who continue to rely on the clinic, obviously this is not going to be sufficient, right? Because the amount is so big, right? So we also need to raise awareness, right? We also need to raise people's understanding of the situation on the ground, and hopefully this will help the clinic also to do fundraising on their own. Hopefully this will mean that the clinic will get more international attention. So it's not just about the funds raised, but it's also about generating and awareness for the current situation. So again, I don't have the ability to change the government policy, right? I don't have the ability to change the US government policy. Because of the sensitivities on the ground, a lot of the clients of the Mae Tao Clinic, they are not exactly registered or documented, right? So those guys, they can't go to like a general hospital where the first thing normally asks for is your ID. And likewise, they can't register themselves as a hospital, right? Because then they will, for the clinic, they will need to request the ID of anyone who comes. So it becomes a bit challenging for them to raise funds, right? Because like the status that they are dealing with, it's a bit of a gray area. And that's why they call themselves a clinic, even though they have like hundreds and thousands of patients. So that's the reason why I decided to do a fundraising campaign, and and I think this was one way that within 1 month we could hopefully raise quite a good amount of money for them, probably more than $150,000 or more than 230,000 Singapore dollars.
Hi everyone, Jeshua here, a filmmaker, entrepreneur and global adventurer. Last year, I cycled 2,000 kilometers from Singapore to Bangkok to raise funds for the Mae Tao Clinic. I'm not much of a walker myself, and 500 kilometers will be more than half a year of what I normally walk. I consider myself extremely blessed to be in a position where I can take action. But I hope this will not be a solo effort. All of you are welcome to join me in this journey by donating generously and dangerously, such that we can meet this target and even surpass it.
I think physically definitely it was very challenging because it's much harder than cycling. I did a cycling thing like in 14 days, 2,000 kilometers, but with the bicycle, I didn't feel so much of the strain. Of course, there was strain, there was pain, but this one was probably like 10 times worse if you ask me. So first day was fine, right? I think I made it quite alright. The first day I felt good. Second day was getting a bit hard. Third day I could no longer walk after 40 kilometers. I just decided that I had to tap out and take a break. So and then that was like a rest for more than 24 hours before I could continue again, because like my feet was cramping very badly. And I think I was not doing enough stretching. The nutrition was not good enough. So after that rest, we put in some routine to do more stretching and eat more and get all the electrolytes and nutrients needed to last longer. But in terms of walking pace, also that went down quite significantly. I was going at like around 4.5 kilometers per hour in the first day, and then by day 5, I think it was like 3 kilometers per hour. So walking very slowly and taking a lot of breaks along the way to make sure that I can actually make it for that whole duration. So if I was walking around like 42 kilometers per day, at that speed, it was basically about 14 to 15 hours of walking per day, right? And then of course there's like breaks as well, lunch break, dinner break, breakfast, and midday rest and night rest. So I would typically only get like around 3 hours of sleep for the midday and 3 hours of sleep at night. And then there's no time to do anything else, right? Because 14 hours, 6 hours is already like 20 hours, and then plus all the breaks and the eating, and that's the remainder of the time. And all throughout this period, I had to do fundraising as well. I think I'm very blessed, right? So as I was sharing on my LinkedIn, I'm very fortunate in the sense that the whole support system that was helping me was very strong. So I had excellent support throughout the whole journey. 12.5 days, longer than my targeted 10 days. Someone was always there to give me water, to help me with the stretching, to buy food for me. So that helped to shave off a lot of unnecessary time wastage. Okay. And of course then I have a bit of energy to do other things. And then of course, like all the donors and all the people who were following the journey, giving me well wishes. Some people, especially in the last part, delivering fruits and drinks and helping me to keep the spirits up. The weather, as I mentioned, did not get wet for the whole trip, which was quite unusual, right?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, this is day 13 of Walk for Hope, the 505 kilometer walk I just did from Bangkok to the Mae Tao Clinic here. So I'm finally here after 13 days, and over here we actually have my helmet from last year's Cycle for Hope, and I will be leaving down my shoes here. So it will be left behind in the clinic for posterity. I think the perspective as well, right? Like the mental perspective of, okay, here am I, like as a relatively healthy young guy, living in a good country, with good systems, healthcare, everything. And on the other hand, I'm just doing this for like less than 2 weeks, right? And then you have people at the Mae Tao Clinic who have been doing this for 36 years.
Yeah.
They wake up every day, they do the same thing, and nobody really gives them any recognition or much recognition, right? I'm doing this for 2 weeks, and everyone's talking about it, like we're having a podcast about this.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm not like the main character here, right? I'm not the main.
Yeah.
I'm more of like a vessel, right? So I'm helping this cause, which is bigger than me. And I'm trying to allow more people to see, the needs of these people through a very short-lived 14 days or 13 days of walking. So I think in that perspective, it makes the whole process a lot more meaningful. And yeah, it's like you just look at it from a privileged point of view that, I'm blessed with so many things. I have so many things to be grateful for. And this is a very temporary pain, right? Where a lot of people will thankfully and hopefully be supported by this initiative, and people who have been suffering or have been working hard for a much longer period of time. Yeah, so again, very thankful for the strong support. I told them that it's extremely small effort on my part, right, compared to the many years of work that the clinic has been doing, and also to hopefully not be adding to the caseload, right? Because ultimately we don't hope that anyone ends up in hospital, right? But we still need to make sure the hospital is there when someone has a need. So I think it taught me, right? The whole process taught me about the importance of being healthy, and I hope it also teaches other people, right, that health is so important. So obviously, number one, support the Mae Tao clinic, and number two, stay healthy so you don't end up in the Mae Tao clinic. So that was like, so yeah, the fundraising, we have already reached the goal of 150,000 Singapore dollars for the walking fundraiser. But of course, the needs are much more than that, right? The clinic has a big shortfall because of the USA closure. So I'm encouraging people to look at the clinic's website, maetaoclinic.org. There's a lot of ways that you can donate to them directly.
Greetings from Yangon. I've just completed the 500 kilometers Walk for Hope campaign last Friday. Unfortunately, 1 hour after I arrived at the Mae Tao clinic, there was a huge earthquake that hit central Myanmar. The cities of Sagaing and Mandalay are hit the worst, but I could feel the building shake even in Mae Tao clinic. We still don't know the true extent of the damage, as phone and internet lines have been down. I've decided to stay here in Myanmar to help coordinate some of the relief efforts.
Have only been in Yangon trying to recover from the walk for my feet and things like that. But we have been coordinating as a company the response across different organizations and individuals. So we have a few youth groups that we are supporting in terms of, like, we charter them a bus, we charter them a car to get people onto the affected areas. We purchase equipment, we purchase food, medical supplies. So we purchase the medicines, we help them with the on the ground like deployment, and my ex-employee actually has a warehouse in Mandalay, so we are using those as a base of operation as well. Reception, I say, would be like we don't want to, or the perception, right, is that we don't want to put our name on everything, like say, oh yeah, Crossroads support this, Crossroads sponsor that, because there's no need to like do a marketing campaign, right? We help anybody and everybody, right? The objective is to help many people as possible, as fast as possible. And some of these groups, they are lacking certain things. Some of these groups, they have more resources. So we even borrow, like we trade and we borrow, right? According to what the situation requires. So for example, like we wanted to bring in some water filter kits, and there was a group that was flying in from Singapore. We told them, okay, why not you don't bring the medicine, you bring our water filtration kits, we'll buy the medicine here in Myanmar, and we meet you at the airport and we trade, right? So we give you the medicine, you give me the water filtration kits, and we kill two birds with one stone. And then we give the kits to another group to distribute it. So these things, you need people who really have a long horizon to rebuild and to help the country to get back on its feet. Not something that like a business person will come in and invest because they want to see returns in a shorter horizon, right? Their time horizon is like maximum 5 years, right? So aid groups or organizations, they need to think long term, right? They need to plan for many years rather than many days or many weeks. They need to think about things that are like teaching people how to fish rather than giving them the fish, right? So a lot of the aid works that we are seeing now is literally giving people a fish, which nothing wrong because like people need to eat, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say looking at long term, the aspects which people need help in no shortage of mention, right? Like I can go on for a long time, whether it's healthcare, education, sanitation, your brain development, human capital, your infrastructure, your systems and policies and government and private sector entrepreneurship. There's so many things that people can like look into to improve. But yeah, people need to not give up, number one, right? Don't give up. Secondly, do something that uniquely you can do, that you are aware of, number one, that of course you can make a difference in. Like, where do I start? So many things to do. Yeah, so I would say everyone just working together, like how they are coming together during this earthquake, right? You see people helping in any way they can. They need to have the same attitude towards the long term. We need to have the same attitude towards the long term. Like everyone just helping the way that they can, and I think that would definitely move the direction in the right place, move the needle in the right direction. I think one area that definitely more youths and more young people can look at, right, is the mindset transformation, right? And that starts from the individual, right? And wow, situation is bad, and I have a like living in a country with crisis every year. Those kind of things is you're not going to change the situation by complaining, right? So for lack of a better word, or it might sound a bit harsh, but that's the truth, right? You're just talking about the problem. Anyone can talk about the problem, but we need more problem solver, right? We need more people who at least going to try. We're not going to say that you're definitely going to work at the first time.
Yeah.
So the mindset issue is not something that you can teach in school, right? It's not something that you can have a 1 hour workshop and you're suddenly into that problem solving mentality. Like, no one's going to solve your problem unless you want to solve it yourself. US aid closing down has demonstrated, right, that even the biggest aid organization can disappear overnight. You are left to solve your own problem, and you are the best person to solve your own problem because you are most interested in your problem. Other people will only be like marginally interested. And yeah, I think that's the mindset problem, that if everybody has a can-do spirit, has a problem-solving mentality, that the impact will be so much greater than, if there are 10 US aids, giving out food or, providing healthcare on the ground. Those things are useful, but they are not sustainable, and they are not the solution, in my opinion.